Good afternoon, everybody. Gary also. And good afternoon to the people that are following us online. I'm Lucia Dettori. I'm the interim dean of the Jarvis College of Computing and Digital Media. And I'm very honored to welcome you here at my college. And I'm even more honored to welcome you at the Jarvis Innovation and Collaboration Center. And the reason why I say that is because innovation and collaboration are at the very core of computing, which is what we will be talking about today. So I feel like meeting in this space and having this presentation in this space is really appropriate for this celebration. And in addition to having this role as an interim dean of the college, which, by the way, is the largest college at DePaul. We have 6,000 students. We have students in film, in computing, and in design. I'm legally required to say that. Just in case my president is listening in. I'm also here as a faculty member in computing, who was one of the founding members of CAFÉCS, the Chicago Alliance for Equity in Computer Science, which is the group with the partnership with Chicago Public Schools, Loyola, DePaul, and UIC. They started kind of this movement of bringing computer science, meaningful computer science for the students in Chicago. And this has been a labor of love that has lasted many, many years. I think we're now up to almost 14 years. And so that's the thing that I'm most proud of. And we call this a celebration because it's very important every year to celebrate the achievement that we have obtained in this effort. And so what you're going to see today is some of the research that kind of celebrate and confirm the achievement that have been reached in this effort to bring computer science to the students of Chicago. So I'm going to just close it here and hope that you'll be listening with all your opening ears to this and help celebrate not just the research that is being presented today, but the work that goes in every day in classroom by our teachers and the work that is performed by our students in the classroom, even more important, and all those administrators that work behind the scenes to facilitate this and make this happen. These are all important, critical ingredients for the success and the celebration that we're going to do today. So I'm going to shut up and bring it to Stephen.
All right, thank you for that introduction, Lucia. My name is Steve McGee. I'm president of the Learning Partnership. Our organization is also one of the founding members of the Chicago Alliance for Equity in Computer Science. I'm going to give kind of an overview of what's going to happen today, and we'll throw it open to the fellows. So we're going to focus on a few projects. So one is called Exploring Connections to Computer Science. We have a couple of research projects that narrow specifically on the Exploring Computer Science curriculum, which is the primary curriculum that the CPS students use to fulfill the graduation requirement. We have some results on AP Computer Science principles in CPS. And for the first time, this is a question that we've been getting asked for 10 years. What happens to students when they go to college? So we actually have some results we'll share today as well. So I want to give a little bit of background and context for all of the data that we're going to be sharing today. So the first milestone is back in 2012, ECS came to town. And we had our first ECS workshop in Chicago. And then teachers implemented in the 2012-13 school year. In 2016, the district enacted a graduation requirement. Important to keep in mind, it took 4 years of ramping up that we had a plan in place, and the district had a plan in place and a process before the board enacted the requirement. And then CAFÉCS actually formalized in 2017. And then the district gave schools 4 years for the first cohort to graduate in 2020. So those that entered in 2016, graduated in 2020, fulfilling the requirements. We're now in the 5th cohort in June that graduated, fulfilling the graduation requirement. A couple of projects we've had along the way that are relevant today. So one we call the Bridges Project. So as the schools were ramping up to offer computer science, we worked with the Office of Science to infuse computational thinking activities into science classes. And so we'll see a little bit about the results of that research. We'll talk a little bit about the Exploring Connections to Computer Science project that started in 2020. And then here are fellowship projects. So one, we'll hear about analyzing the connections that students make between the activities of computer science and their lives outside of school. We'll look at ECS assessments and how we're using AI to score the assessments. And then, as I mentioned, we'll look at the impact of taking ECS on science grades. And then we'll take a look at the expansion of AP-CSP in the district and what are some of the factors that contribute to that. And then this is a little bit complicated, but if we think about way back when ECS started, the class that graduated, the class of 2013, when they went to college, if they went to a traditional four-year college, they would have graduated in 2016. So 4 years later. So we're going to look at some of the data for, and the first cohort just graduated if they went to a four-year school. Unfortunately, we do not have the data from 2024. So we'll look at outcomes up through the college graduation class of 2023. And unfortunately, the fellow that did this research was not able to come to the symposium, so I will present his slides on his behalf at the end. And then throughout the way, we'll have some students and teachers that will be commenting about their experience. So we have a couple of Northwestern, UIC, Washington State, and UC Irvine. Okay, before I go launch into exploring connections to computer science, just a little bit about underlying philosophy of CSP and exploring computer science. It's important to bear in mind that there's 3 important components, ingredients that make up ECS as well as the CSP curriculum. Equity is at the forefront, and that's really, I think, a change in a lot of computer science education that came about with ECS is really forefronting equity, building on students' cultural wealth, and connecting to real life issues. And then on top of equity is engaging students in the process of inquiry to learn basic CS concepts. So it's forefronting equity, engaging students in inquiry is what leads to the development of CS concepts. Although it's not the same explicit strands that ECS has, these ideas underlie the CSP, the computer science principles curriculum as well. And in CPS, the last couple of years, Make Code is the primary CSP curriculum that has been used. So the underlying philosophy of ECS dovetails or is based prominently on Latson-Billings' culturally relevant pedagogy. And there's 3 elements that she talked about almost 30 years ago, but that academic achievement is really brought about through the development of cultural competence and connections to socio-political consciousness. And what she means by that is cultural competence is appreciating and celebrating every student's culture of origin and providing opportunities for them to learn about other people's cultures. And socio-political consciousness is helping students to be able to identify, analyze, and solve real-world problems. And that's really at the heart of ECS and the CSP curriculum. So a few elements of the exploring connections to computer science. It really starts with helping students think about their identity, help them develop their identity in terms of their interests, values, what they value in their community, what their future goals are, and helping them make connections to computer science content. And we do that through a few scaffolded structures. So one is that students fill out an identity survey and actually feeds into a physical bookmark that they get in the classroom. And this is a digital representation of that. So after filling out an identity survey, the results go to the teacher in terms of raw data. They also get a summary report. And then students actually get their own physical bookmark that summarizes the key aspects of their identity. And then we've developed a set of activities that builds on the foundation of ECS and CSP to show teachers how they can have students use the bookmark to infuse themselves into the ECS and CSP activities. And then at the end of each lesson devoted to exploring connections, the students fill out a survey where they talk about their perceptions of the connections they've made, whether or not they value CS, and the teachers get a summary report. So last year we did some research on the end of activity survey, and what we found is that when students actually perceived that they were making connections between their identity and CS concepts, that we saw that that correlated with increased value that they perceived in computer science, which then in turn correlated with increased interest in pursuing CS. So we're seeing that their perceptions of the connections leads to increased value. What we didn't have a chance to do is to actually look at the actual connections that students make in the activities, and in the long run, whether or not that's connected to their perceptions of making connections. So that's where our undergraduate fellows come into play, is they actually studied the actual connections that students have been making. With that, I'll turn it over to Anna and Hameen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anna Chung, and I'm with Hamin Yu, and we are from Northwestern University.
And today we'll just be showing you our research that we did on the student connections that they made in the EC2 CS curriculum. And as a quick overview of our project, we analyzed activities across ECS and APCSP. And in ECS, we analyzed 124 students' bookmarks and 69 CSP students' bookmarks. And in total, there were 789 activities that we looked at. And to find the connections within these units, we just compared students' bookmarks and looked over their activities to see if they had answers that connected to their bookmarks directly or just their own lives. And doing this, we found 2,404 connections across all these activities, which averaged to about 3 connections per activity. And for our coding framework, we had direct bookmark connections, where connections come straight from the bookmark, and bookmark extension connections that aren't necessarily directly correlated with their bookmark, but are assisted by it along with the activities. And we also found that the 3 most common connections that students were made were the bookmark connection of their race and ethnicity, and then their hobbies and skills. And within the bookmark extension connections, we found that a lot of students make connections with social awareness. And all of these support the underlying principles of culturally responsive pedagogy. As the top 2 represent cultural competence, and social awareness is connected to socio-political consciousness. So in the ECS curriculum, we can see the unit breakdown here, where in Unit 1, hobbies and skills was very prevalent. Unit 2, social awareness was. And then Unit 3, it was hobbies and skills and social awareness. And in Unit 4, race and ethnicity was a prominent connection that students made.
And then for the APCSP curriculum, we can also see that the unit breakdown, there's 7 units. And the units that these connections showed up the most in was in unit 1, 3, and 7. So unlike the ECS curriculum, this one is more, the connections are showing up in certain activities. And so these activities are differing in terms of what connections are popping up. And so as we can see, there's 3 units where these connections are popping up more. So we want to see what differences were found in the codes between courses.
So some difference in connections we saw was in ECS, we saw that a lot of students made connections to future goals more than we expected.
And then for APCSP, they were making more bookmark extension connections than expected, specifically to neighborhood and personal preferences. And so even though neighborhood is technically not on the bookmark, it is related to community.
And this is just a quick visualization of what we said in our previous slide. And so in ECS, most of the connections that students made to future goals came from these 2 prompts, which was in unit 1. So on the charts on the left-hand side, it'll say the bookmark prompts and the responses. So to the activity prompt of naming a profession, this student answered that what they want to do after graduating high school is to go to college, get a degree in cooking or something like that, and also business so that they can open a cafe. And their answer was simply just cooking. And this is pretty similar to like a lot of other answers that they gave. As you can see over there, where they want to become a nurse and is nursing and so on. And there's a similar question to that where students were asked to name a college or university. And this student, after high school, they said they want to go to UIUC for electrical engineering. And they put down Urbana as their college of choice. Just kind of shows that they know what their future goals are and know what it takes to achieve those future goals through their college degree and what kind of degree is needed for it. And this is reflected across several students' bookmark answers and their activity answers.
And then for APCSP, one of the bookmark connection or bookmark extensions that were made was the neighborhood. And so a lot of these units talk about how they would define their community, who they consider to be a part of their community, and also what people or places are helping them make connections to their culture. And so some of their examples that they would give in their answers is Little Village, such as Little Village being a community of Latin people, or Chinatown because they share the same culture. And we can also talk about neighborhood generally as well, because some students say people who live near them or live by them. So we can see that neighborhood is important to students' identities. They also talk about their personal preferences as well. So in some of the activities, they're given a choice to personalize the activity. For example, they could encrypt a message that they want to protect. And so it's like they basically make a message and make like a secret message, but they have to choose something that they want to protect. And so a lot of students chose their personal preferences to protect. For example, this student chose donuts because they enjoy buying strawberry donuts with their mom. This other student picked strawberries. There's a lot of reasons why they like strawberries, but we can see that students are demonstrating what they prefer. And then different activity, they're choosing images to use. And so they're supposed to choose images that are meaningful to them. And so we can see for this student, they chose 4 different images. They chose a cat because it reminds them of their cat. They chose salad because it's their favorite food. They chose monkey because it reminds them of their childhood. And they chose fish because it reminds them of the first pet they got. And so we can see that preferences are very important for these students in terms of their identity. And it also gives them agency over their learning because they get to choose what they're doing. So in turn, we can say that the bookmarks are supporting students in making connections to computer science and their lives, because there was an average about 3 connections per activity. And the most prevalent connections were related to culturally relevant pedagogy. Again, these connections were racial and ethnic identity, hobbies, and social awareness. And we can also say that the activities are supporting students in making additional connections that they didn't even think of when they were completing the identity surveys. So in our future work, we want to think about how the prevalence of making culturally relevant connections is supporting students' perceptions of their value of CS and also their connections to computer science, and also analyzing activity reflections. Teachers have brought up that students are making connections, but it's hard to articulate that these students are making connections. So we want to think about how these students are reflecting after they complete these activities. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Tamika, you can come off mute. And let's see. Tamika is one of our Exploring Connections to Computer Science teachers, and she's going to share a little bit about her experiences.
All right. Hi, everyone. Let me just start out by saying the research is spot on. Our grad students have done a great job at analyzing the data. It's so spot on. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tamika Lewis Morris, and I teach at Mather High School. I've been teaching at ECS for, I want to say, roughly 7 years. I've kind of lost count. But I've started doing Exploring Connections since its inception. So I was there when it was first piloted. And so I've been doing it for 3 years now. And I think it's so wonderful because it brings in this personalized touch to our ECS curriculum. And so I enjoy them as much as my students enjoy them because, as I mentioned, it really kind of help them to connect with themselves and to their fellow classmates and to their community as well. So as you've heard mention of the bookmark, I'll start there. So our students take the survey at the beginning of the school year, and they get this really nice little bookmark with all the things that they mention in the survey. And when I pass those out at the beginning of the unit, it's always a shock to them because some of them have forgotten about what they've written, and it's like, oh, this nice little bookmark. And the benefit that I see in that is that it solidifies their interest, because on there, the 3 things that are highlighted on the bookmark, their interests, their future goal, their values as well, their plans, their future plan, and then their values as well. It also talks about their hobbies, their skills, what they do in their leisure time, for the future. What are their plans? What do they plan to do after graduation? And then for values, the qualities that they find important. And so when you see those written down, and they see all those things written down, it kind of sort of solidifies what they're thinking. And so their hobbies of reading or traveling becomes real. It's almost kind of like the saying, you speak it and you speak it into existence, right? And so that provides that sense of, you know what, I want to be a lawyer. I want to go into computer science. When they see that written down, it does something to them. And I know this because later on, when I question them, so what are you planning to do in the future? What are you going to do after graduation? I will hear some of them mention those same things. I'm planning to go into mechanic or computer science, or I will hear those same things that have been written on the bookmark. So I think it's great. The bookmarks are great because it helps them to kind of, as I mentioned, solidify their thought process. And so I encourage all of them to make sure you fill out the survey, because you'll have some of them that may not fill it out. And then when you're passing it out and everyone is getting the survey and they're comparing, those same ones are going to be like, Miss, where's my bookmark? And so I try to remind you, fill out the survey, because later on you're going to get a bookmark and you don't want to be left out. So that is something you want to remind them about. Another thing, so in addition to that, what I use the bookmarks to do is to group my students. And so when we first get them, I will tell them, go around the room and find someone that has something in common with you based on the bookmark. So that also gives them a chance to get up and walk around and to exchange bookmarks and look at each other's interests and things like that. and then they'll find a partner to work with. And that is great for collaboration because now they have someone who shares their interests in a hobby or their plans for the future or whatever it is. They feel like they've made this connection with this other person. So that helps in the collaboration of the assignment. And by the way, ECS and Exploring Connection working together, they've done a really great job of pulling out the activities out of the units and maintaining the originality, but at the same time bringing in that personalized touch. And that's really good because the kids gravitate to it. And it also, the whole activity, it provides like a little break in like the normal flow of things in my classroom because now, and I like to get the paper copy. I really do. I like to get the paper copy because, it provides a little break from just like, the computer or just collaborating in group to now like, oh, I have to read this and fill it out and include my bookmark and talk about myself. So it really gives them that opportunity to talk about themselves, to get to know who they are. Because a lot of times our high school kids, sometimes the hardest thing to write about when they have to write about themselves. Like, what's your interest? What do you value? What's your community? And so a lot of this provides just this amazing connection, inner connection, and like Unit 2 that talks about community. They get to see that their community is not just the neighborhood that they live in. Their community can also be their classroom, their sports team, the school, the city. And so they get to collaborate and discover the many communities that they are in fact a part of that they didn't know. And so they can, share some information on that as well. And so what else did I want to say? Yeah. So just the activities, as I mentioned, are great in terms of how they're personalized and students get to collaborate on those and create projects. I don't know if I will be able to, I don't have it set up and I don't want to like be looking all over the place, but I've had like really good assignments that students have collaborated on. Students who share interests in like sports, volleyball, they collaborated and created a website on sharing information and instructions on, the various aspects of volleyball, on different food and restaurants and things like that. So just coming together, collaborating around things that interest them makes the class a little more fun to be in as well. And I think that is all I have to share. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Tamika, for sharing your experiences, and thank you so much for being a part of the project and all that you do for your students. It's wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Stephen.
Oh, and there was her picture. All right, so we actually have a video of some students talking about the Exploring Connections project.
Wanted to learn and gives the teacher feedback, so it definitely helped me because I kind of got to write down a few goals that I had and like a few things that I wanted to learn, and gives the teacher feedback, so that kind of made me feel like I could like really, how do I put this, I could really like understand the class more once I have like kind of written instructions, especially with a teacher like Ms. Taylor. She reads these, she learns a lot about the students. I think that definitely made me feel more connected to the class.
We really just filled out the bookmark before we did the activity. They like helped us like brainstorm what we were gonna make our project or our thing about.
So we did a lot of projects about like the culture, food, like from our country, movies we like, and everything. So I think they just to like get know us better.
The bookmarks, they actually helped me a lot because they asked the questions. Like, they first asked the question of what it's about, what I'm gonna need, what areas am I gonna focus on. So that helps me because it's like all my ideas. It's like I could write about what's gonna be the main topic, then focus on the important things and then the less important things, and it's a way to guide myself and know what goes first, second, and third.
I think they're really good because you're just bringing up ideas of what we're going to do and what our topic is going to be based on. So I think it's really good.
I feel like the bookmark is like a way to like help us students like think outside of the box, because sometimes when we're in computer science, we just think of it as like something like a requirement to like graduate or like a requirement to get the credit instead of like just thinking of what the importance of the class is and like how that can help you like later in life or like even right now as students. Like we do need to learn how to use technology,
And we combine our hobbies and our skills, and like what our interests were. We like with our to our kind of project for the website. So we kind of combine everything from the bookmark into what we kind of wanted to make.
Just having like all the information in one place makes you like be more organized, because sometimes you have so many ideas that you don't have like which one you should pick. So just having it like written down, it was easier to just like create a plan.
I say that it was actually it was pretty good to do. When after you finish the activities in it, it kind of was good to take a break from doing like the project that we were doing and working on that. It kind of like made me think about like what do we use for computer science. And Ms. Morris did tell us that Wisdom computer science kind of goes to almost everything we do nowadays. Like Wisdom just being on your phones, just pretty much almost everything in this building is being run by computer science. That's kind of like how I'm like, okay, computer science plays a huge role.
I found myself like putting different stuff down like each time I did it though. It was like really interesting to me. Like I'm casually changing. I'm like tracking my progress as I'm changing as a person.
It definitely helped.
Mute back on. All right. Okay, so that was a overview of some of the research about the Exploring Connections to Computer Science project. So now we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about a couple of projects that highlights exploring computer science. And the first is how we're developing AI scoring models to score ECS assessments.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yori. I just recently graduated from Northwestern. And I'm really excited to talk to you guys about using AI to score ECS assessments. So as we all know, thousands of students take ECS every year, and that gives us a lot of data, and some of them being pre-test, post-test, and placement test scores. A little bit more of a breakdown. So ECS has been going on for 8 years, which means that we have data from 2016 to 2024 and a whole lot of data. So 31,000 student responses for the pre-test and 10,000 for the post-test. And so maybe like an example question that students might see on the post-test is something really open-ended like this. Like, what is a disadvantage of having a self-driving car that also allows someone to take control of it? And you can see here, like, it's very open-ended. There's more than one answer. Something like text matching or clustering can be really difficult. So this is where something called BERT comes in. So BERT is an open source machine learning framework for natural language processing. It stands for that. It doesn't stand for the Sesame Street character. Sorry to yeah. Um but yeah, if you aren't familiar with machine learning, this just sounds like a bunch of words. At least for me, it did 5 months ago. And so I'm just going to give an analogy of how I like to think BERT works. So I used to be blonde. I used to have red hair. I used to have green hair, so I'm no stranger to dyeing hair. So I like to think of using BERT as dyeing hair. And I'm just going to give like a step-by-step of like what the process might look like. So first we would split the hair into different sections, and this is really similar to something in machine learning where we're splitting the data into training, validation, and testing sections. Next, we're priming the hair for the dye. Sometimes the dye doesn't work correctly without the primer. And this is really similar to when we're pre-processing the data into tensors. We have a lot of student data and they're in natural language, right? They're in sentences, they're in words, but the model doesn't really like working with that. So we're transforming it into something that's more machine readable. Next, we're actually building the model. And this is similar to when we're mixing the hair dye. We're adding the color components. We're adding different ingredients that will create different results. And that's like building the model architecture. So for like my model, for example, I added things like dropout, ReLU, softmax. And these are different functionalities that give us the results that we want. And now for like the hefty part of the process, we're actually applying the dye to our hair. And this is just like applying the actual model architecture. So we're training the model on the data. Something just interesting that I can kind of geek out on. My model has something called a hyperband, and that basically searches through all the possible combinations of the hyperparameters, and that actually optimizes the accuracy to get the results that we want. And lastly, we get to show off our results. So using the model, we're able to get the predictions, actually score the data, export it, and then use it for other cool things and cool projects. And speaking of sharing results, I'm going to share some of the results from this project. This is, we ran like a Roche modeling on the results. And so you can kind of see the span of student scores on the first column and also the difficulty of the different questions. Post 3E is at the top, which means that it's probably a more difficult question, whereas post 1A is on the bottom, which means that it might be more easier. But focusing more on the raters, if we zoom in here, we can see that grader 62 is at the top, which probably means that they were a stricter grader, whereas grader 8 is on the bottom, which means that they might have been a little bit more lenient. And you might be asking, okay, where does the AI grader fit, in the midst of this? It's actually right in the middle. And this makes sense because we're using the human graders as its training data, right? So it would make sense that it's like a balance of all of the different graders. So what's next? Personally, I'm really excited to see student progress now that we have all the tests graded for 2024. I'm interested to see, how the scores differ between the pre-test and the post-test. I'm also excited about the AI model being used for future pre-post tests, so for 2025, 2026, and so on, which means that we can give feedback to teachers way faster. It takes about like 15 minutes to grade thousands of tests, which is really great. And it's also cheaper. We don't have to hire manual graders anymore. So now we can use our resources at the Learning Partnership for other projects. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to talk about, I mentioned earlier about the Bridges project and the connections between computer science and science. One of the things that we did as part of the Bridges project is we actually analyzed the Skyline science curriculum, which is for CPS is across all the different subject areas, the district is providing K-12 digital resources that are culturally relevant. And in science, as part of our project, we helped infuse some computational thinking activities into the science lessons. And so this is prior work that we did to just show the percentage of different kinds of computational thinking activities that appear in biology and chemistry and physics. And then last year, we actually did a study looking at I think it was like 10 years of science data and ECS, and we found that students who took ECS before they took their science class actually did better in whatever science class it was, but it was a small amount. But then when we looked at those schools that had committed to implementing Skyline, what we found was there was actually a much larger effect of ECS. Students who took ECS prior to in a school where this school had committed to Skyline was about a half letter grade. But what we didn't have was, did the teachers actually implement Skyline? So that's what we're looked at this year. I'm going to invite Ray Ping to come up, and she's going to look at some of our analyses of students, the teachers actually implementing Skyline and the effect of ECS.
Hi everyone, my name is Ray Ping. I'm a PhD candidate from UIC. So today my research topic is how Skyline implementation influence the effectiveness of ECS course taking on student science performance. So first, let me give you an overview. So look at this picture, you can see that so the Skyline units have 8 units for the biology, chemistry, and physics. And you should notice that all of our data based on the student activity in Safari Montage. So we does not count teachers who downloaded the materials and distributed them through the Google Classroom. So look at this picture, you can see that most of the teachers, they didn't implement any Skyline units, but you should notice that the data was just based on the Safari Montage we have, right? So for the remaining teachers, you can see that few teachers, most of the teachers, they implemented a few Skyline units, and no teachers implemented all of the Skyline units. So we use hierarchical linear modeling to analyze the data. So the highest level is the school, and then the second level will be the teacher course level. We categorize the teachers into different groups. So for example, science teachers who did not implement Skyline. Second group, science teacher who implemented 1 unit of Skyline, and so on. So for each of the same class, we categorize the student into 2 groups. The first group will be the student who did not take any ECS course before they got the science grades. The second group will be students who took ECS before they got the science grades. And we compare the students' course grades across different units of the Skyline implemented. Here is what we get. So first, look at the biology. You can see that we only focus on the nice grades. So why we only focus on the nice grade? Because we found that most of the students, they took the biology course in their nice grade. So we focus on nice grade. So you can see that here, it shows like we have the difference value between the student who did not take any ECS course before and the student who take ECS before. And you can see that the gap is bigger and bigger. What it means? It means that the effect is progressively increased when the teachers implemented more Skyline units. Similarly, we also get the result from the chemistry, and you can see that it also shows the effect progressively increased when the teacher implemented more Skyline units. Maybe you will ask a question, why we have 8 units, but here just 0, 1, and 2? Because on our data sets, we only focus on the 10th grade, and then for this teacher, we didn't found no teacher, we found no teachers that implemented more than 2 units of the Skyline. Yeah. And here is our conclusion. So first, for the 9th grade biology and 10th grade chemistry, taking ECS is associated with higher science grades. Second, the more 9th grade biology and 10th grade chemistry Skyline units a teacher implemented, the advantage for ECS increases. It means that the ECS have an effect on students' science course grade, right? And then the effect will be bigger and bigger when the teachers implemented more Skyline units. Third one, there was not a relationship between taking ECS and the physics course grades. So because we didn't have so the model is not so significant. So that was what we get. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
All right, so now that was all about exploring computer science. Now we're going to turn our attention to AP Computer Science principles. And I invite Owner up to talk about his analyses of AP CSP.
Hello everyone, I am Onur and I'm a PhD candidate of education psychology at Washington State University, and I'm going to talk about the implementation of AP-CSP in Chicago Public Schools by using the CAPE framework, and CAPE here stands for the capacity, access, participation, and experience. I will first start with the capacity within the Chicago Public Schools to offer the AP-CSP, and for this one we analyze the number of at least partially qualified AP-CSP teachers in Chicago Public Schools. We have the data sets from 2016 to 2023, and we can see a steady upward trend in Chicago Public Schools in having at least partially qualified AP-CSP teachers. And in addition to this descriptive approach, we also use the multi-level binary logistic regression analysis to see what school level factors is associated with the likelihood of having at least partially qualified AP-CSP teacher. And we found that school size, a number of percentage of Asian students, as well as the presence of at least partially qualified ESC teachers are associated with the probability of having AP-CSP teacher at school. And also, I cannot see my slide. The number of white and Hispanic Latinx students, as well as the students on free or reduced lunch, which is also a proxy for the school social economic status, are associated with reduced likelihood of having at least partially qualified AP-CSP teacher. And the next component of the CAPE framework is the access. And for the access, we analyze the school offering AP-CSP courses. And again, we can see a steady upward trend from 2016 to 2020, and we have a slight decline in the remaining of the years for the schools offering AP-CSP courses. And again, we use the same model to see what school level factors influencing the likelihood of offering AP-CSP course, percentage of Asian students and students with special needs at the schools are as well as the presence of at least partially qualified CSP teachers are positively contributed to a likelihood of offering AP-CSP courses, and percentage of Hispanic students and again the school social economic status are the negative contributors. In addition to this, we wanted to see if there is any relationship between the capacity and access to examine the opportunity gap. And we can see in this visual that even if some schools have the APCSP teachers, at least partially qualified, they did not offer the APCSP course as of yet, which also refers to the opportunity gap. And the next component was the participation, and we for this we analyze the Hispanic Latinx students as well as Black African American students that within the district and who are taking the APCSP courses. We can see that Hispanic Latinx students within the district well represented in APCSP courses, but there is a significant decline in 2022-2023, which requires further analysis. And for the Black and African American students, there was underrepresentations until 2021, and it's still ongoing, but Chicago Public Schools started to do better in the representation of the Black and African American students. And then we wanted to see, yes, for the experience component of the CAFE framework, you can see here, what you are seeing here is the percentage of students who pass the AP exam, and we have mixed findings, but most importantly, in the most recent years, we have a decline in the percentage of students who pass the AP exam. And we analyze, we use the multi-level binary logistic regression to see what student level factors influencing passing the AP exam, and cumulative GPA of the students and a higher rate and greater GPA positively contributed to passing the AP exam, which makes sense. And good news that race ethnicity was a predictive factor passing the AP AP exam. And final remarks would be that CPS is increasing its capacity based on the number of schools with at least partially qualified APCSP teachers, and having qualified CSC teachers increases the likelihood of having an APCSP teacher. And to increase the access within the Chicago Public Schools, CPS can focus on the schools who have APCSP teacher but aren't offering the APCSP courses. And thank you.
Okay, we're going to invite Manuel Medina, who's one of our APCSP teachers here in Chicago Public Schools, to talk for a few minutes about his experiences with the CSP curriculum.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
You're good.
So as he mentioned, my name is Emmanuel. I go by Manny Medina. This is going to be the start of my 4th year teaching high school. I started teaching exploring computer science. I started with ECS. It was a curriculum that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed teaching it and using it with students. And then the following year, I transitioned into teaching 4 classes of AP computer science principles. And that gave me the opportunity to really kind of see the big connection that we can make between what students learn in the classroom and what goes on in the real world industry, right? So in exploring computer science, it's just a class where we are exploring everything, right? We try to make those connections. We make it obvious for students, and students, surprisingly to me, make those connections themselves. Whereas in AP Computer Science Principles, now we are grabbing all of those connections and we're actually applying them into an actual work, which is, creating a program, something that they can use out in the real world and that will either make a difference in a community, in a society, or simply bring entertainment into the world, right? So I think that when we're talking about APCSP, I think right there we are building upon what we have already seen in exploring computer science. My experience comes from teaching the curriculum using the Microsoft MakeCode. I don't know if it's familiar or you guys are familiar with it, but it happens to be a platform which I think is really, really fun to use, not just obviously for myself, but I mean for students as well, because it introduces them to block coding. It introduces them to the I guess the attractiveness and also the ease of building code just using blocks, but then it also allows them to translate those blocks into JavaScript and then Python, which introduces them to a whole, it's like learning different languages almost. So APCSP curriculums, whether you use code.org or Microsoft MakeCode or CodeHS or whatever, it's like teaching students a whole different language. And these are languages that they can use out in the real world that are going to be more than just useful when they go and look for a job. In my own professional development, using MakeCode, it's been very eye-opening, not only for my own skills, because I didn't come in as a computer science teacher. I actually started as a social studies teacher. And then I went into computer science and then AP computer science. So my background was mainly with JavaScript. I had no idea what Python was. I had barely even seen block coding. And so MakeCode, like the Microsoft MakeCode curriculum, I think it improved my skills in coding. It has taught me a lot, but mainly it has taught me to create that connection, between coding and the real world. Just because you know the language doesn't mean that you know the connection. And I think that that is something super important and super vital when we are teaching APCSP to students, creating that connection, answering that question of, why am I learning this language? Why am I learning coding? Coding is really boring. I don't want to sit there and just type in code all day. Well, let's answer those questions and let's maybe work on building those connections and having students realize it's like, oh, computer science is not all about just coding. Oh, I am not actually going to sit there and just type in code all day. So for me, teaching APCSP, it's been amazing professionally to my own career. It has helped me a lot, increase my skills. But the real difference comes with students, and then seeing them create their own programs, using their own imagination and creativity, using their own art skills in these programs. That's actually like, to me, that is amazing because they are gaining a new skill. They are gaining all this content knowledge and they are using what they already know and what they are good at and what they like into these programs. So yeah,
right.
that's what I have.
All right. Thank you so much, Manny.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Manny, and thanks for all that you do for your students. And it's great to hear your development as a teacher and the commitment that you have for your students and, what a great experience it is for them as well. All right, so we've spent the bulk of today talking about what's been happening in CPS. Now we're going to turn our attention to what happens to students when they leave CPS and head to college. As I mentioned, our summer fellow, Wesley Jeffrey, was not able to make it this evening, so I'm going to present his slides on his behalf. But what we're looking at here is examining the link between high school coursework and attainment of a bachelor's degree in computer science. So here's the data that we had. So we went all the way back 10 years looking at the context that I mentioned earlier about when ECS first came to town and started to expand computer science within the district. It's important to keep in mind the year 2013, the graduation class. So they were the seniors at that time were the first ones to experience ECS. And then in 2018-19, that was mostly the way through the graduation requirements. So most schools offered at least some computer science at that point. So it was a large expansion of access to computer science in general across the district. So Wesley looked at 9 graduating cohorts, the class of 2011 through the class of 2019. So remember, the class of 2019 would have graduated from a 4-year college in 2023. So as last year, we were able to get the college data. That represents 201,926 students that graduated in those 8 years from CPS. We also got data from the National Student Clearinghouse through CPS. 32,000 students, we have data of them graduating from college during that time period. And then the variables that we looked at was the independent variables. Well, what CS courses did they take? So career and technical ed, exploring computer science, IB computer science, AP computer science principles, AP CSA, and any other computer science in a whole other bucket. And then we, Wes, in collaboration with the whole CPS and CAFÉCS leadership team, we decided to identify this classification of what was a college major. And that's what we counted as students graduating with a CS degree. Okay, so a bit of context of those graduating cohorts. So this, for each of these graduating years, it's the percentage of students that graduated having taken at least one computer science class up until the cohort before the graduation requirement. So sort of peaked out about 35% of the students graduating. Of course, the next year, the next cohort in class, 85% of the students graduated having taken at least one computer science class. And then just as a benchmark, ECS, the class of 2013 was the first graduating class to experience ECS if they happened to take it at that point. And now, the percentage of students who got a college degree from CPS that got a college degree in CS across the different cohorts. So we see not a huge increase, but a gradual increase in the percentage of students who graduated with a major in CS. Of course, question mark. Stay tuned. We'll find out about the graduate. Come on, we need the data. So we'll be getting the data hopefully soon, and we'll be able to report results on the effect of the graduation requirement. So one of the analyses that Wes did is built a very complicated model that took into account the various factors in terms of the time since graduation and its overtime, but looked at what was the probability if a student took a particular science class, did that predict whether or not they went on to get a college major? And so by way of comparison, this is the actual degree attainment from the most recent 2019 graduating class. So based on the model, if a student in any time period across all the years, if they took ECS in high school, they have a 5% probability of actually majoring in CS in college. So there definitely was an influence of students who took CS. It's actually any sort of introductory class, ECS being the biggest one. But if they took ECS and then went on to take AP-CSP, then the probability is actually 10%. So it's a little bit above where the actual degree attainment was. So think back to owner's talk that we still have less than half of the schools actually offer AP-CSP. So that's a big emphasis for CPS and CAFÉCS supporting the district to continue to spread CSP as part of that broadening participation. So the big question is, for the class of 2020, who are the first to graduate under the graduation requirement, Will that rate stay the same that we saw, at least 8% of the previous cohort? And if so, we'd see a much larger increase in the number of students who are actually graduating with a CS major. One of the things that we didn't have a chance to do is sort of parse out questions about race and gender and other aspects of equity. It was a big lift just to get to this point, to have this initial data, which is pretty exciting to see that access to CS and the expansion of access to CS is making a big difference for students going on to get CS majors. All right, with that, I'm very excited to introduce Andrea Munoz and Claudia Jimenez, who are graduates of CPS, and by happenstance, happened to have been studying with our colleague Dale Reed from UIC in a summer CS program. We made the connection, and we're very excited to have them come up and share their experiences of CS and CPS and at UIC. You can come up together.
Hi, I'm Andrea Munoz. I went to Gwendolyn Brooks College Prep, starting from the year 2017. I was interested in CS and wanted to take CS classes, but AP classes were very intimidating for me since I had no background in CS. So I took Exploring Computer Science. It was really fun. I think like the pace.
A little bit closer.
Yeah. The pace was really easy for me to get, and it was making websites was really fun with like a group of people. I think I vividly remember making a website with a group of people, and it was like right now it's very reminiscent of what I do for like internships, and in my level 400 classes I have to work with people to code out like a program or something like that. Yeah, I enjoyed it, and I expressed to my teacher that I wanted to explore more CS, but not take AP classes because they were still intimidating for me. He told me to look into Girls Who Code. I did their summer immersion programs and a program at UIC. Taking those, I did like websites and more applications, programming stuff, and going in the Girls Who Code UIC program offered me like scholarship for being in computer science. I think that decision was very easy to like pick CS because it was what I was interested in, and it was they helped me with money. But overall, this initiative helped me to put me in the right places, and then like make good decisions about my education.
Hi, everyone. My name is Claudia Jimenez. I'm entering my junior year at UIC, also majoring in computer science. I'll be graduating in fall 2026, and I worked with Andrea this summer at an internship on campus. My current path is a result of taking computer science classes at a Chicago public high school. To start at the beginning, I've been interested in computers and how they work for as long as I can remember. I used to play games online as a kid for hours, and I always wondered how much time and effort went into developing those games. As I grew up, my fascination with computers intensified, but the closest thing I could get to learning about tech at my private grade school was in keyboarding club and when my Spanish teacher occasionally let us play Python coding games online. He not only taught us that technology was vital to everything around us, but he also planted the seed that we could be the next tech workers and gave us the space to learn basic skills, something that wouldn't happen again until I went to high school. I had the privilege of attending Lane Tech College Prep from 2018 to 2022. When I was choosing my classes freshman year, I had to decide between art, drama, music, and CS. I guess you can probably tell which one I picked. My Exploring Computer Science teacher, Mr. Daniel Stone, who to this day is one of the best teachers I've ever had. Yeah. taught me many foundational skills in the classroom that at the time I didn't think would be very relevant to my life, until I saw them again in my classes my freshman and sophomore years of college. Learning basic graph theory, fundamental data analysis, and even block coding in Scratch triggered my logical brain, and I had a good feeling that I should keep pursuing CS. Mr. Stone saw my potential, and I decided to sign up for a CS concentration at Lane and take CS classes all 4 years of high school. He also recommended me for experiential learning opportunities outside of the classroom that changed my life, such as monthly tech workshops at Chick Tech Chicago and an engineering camp at the Adler Planetarium. The next step was taking a PCSP my sophomore year, where I learned essential things like how the internet works, meeting project deadlines, teamwork, and how to explain my code. I got really good at my powers of 2 because we all know I would definitely need those later. I spent most of junior year at home due to the COVID pandemic, but I still learned so much at APCSA that I hit the ground running in college with topics like code management, recursion, polymorphism, and inheritance, while many of my classmates struggled to absorb this brand new material. I felt like I was truly becoming a problem solver. One of the most challenging classes I took at Lane was microarchitecture and logic design. It is rarely taught in high school, and I quickly understood why. But it was a unique experience that I'm very grateful for. I felt like I was thrown into the deep end of the pool, but by the end of the year, I learned to swim. Microarchitecture taught me fundamentally how computers work and demystified computers for me, but it also taught me how to persevere when grappling with technical concepts. When applying for colleges my senior year, I was 95% sure I wanted to major in computer science. I'd always be interested in it, and everything needs software nowadays. I thought coding was fun, and I couldn't imagine not coding in college. UIC also made the most sense for me and my family. Plus, it has an expanding, diverse CS program with several resources for women in tech. I felt so proud of myself on my graduation day with my Lane CS medal around my neck, knowing I was going to study a subject I truly love. My classes at UIC are challenging, but I have a solid foundation and feel more confident in my classes, knowing I've already been exposed to a lot of the concepts in high school. The content and skills I learned in CS at Lane have showed up in every computer science class I've taken at UIC, from my 3 programming classes to data structures to machine organization. I have a 4.0 GPA in my major, and I've been on the dean's list every semester. I have also completed undergraduate internships at the Adler Planetarium, researching light pollution, and at a national laboratory via Breakthrough Tech Chicago. But all of that only happened after I won Lane CS Department Student of the Month freshman year. I know that if I didn't take CS classes at Lane, I would not have performed as well in my first 2 years of college, and I may not even have majored in computer science. I want to thank my parents for always encouraging me to continue my technical journey. I also want to emphasize my sincere gratitude for my Lane CS teachers, Mr. Daniel Stone, Mr. Leon Kim, Mr. Daniel Law, and Mr. Jeff Solon. Thank you for always believing in me, pushing me to learn more, giving me valuable advice, and being guiding lights to me and countless other students. After graduating college, I will launch my career in tech, remembering that I always got my start in the computer science department at Lane Tech. Thank you.
The future looks bright. Another round of applause for all of our fellows this summer and our guest speakers. And our teachers, yes, online. Well, as you can see from the dates, research looks backwards, takes a long time. But what we want to do now is to actually come forward to the present and invite Chris Beck, the Director of Computer Science, to close us out with some thoughts about where things are at now with computer science.
I just want to start by making a connection between what the future looks like and the research we've done to get to this place. If not for the research, we would not be where we're at now. It couldn't have happened. Like, I don't know. I'm used to looking at some of this data, but to see where we were and what happened in 2020 when the graduation requirement went in and the dramatic increase, and then hearing what that impact on students is, it just makes me want to like cry, I want to break up because it's so profound. And it's because of the research and having that expertise and support, working with our teachers and with like all the people here in this room, that those things became possible. You cannot separate them out. So I just wanted to start with that. And I only have 5 minutes and I could talk about this for like hours, so I'll go quick. So we didn't quite talk about it today, but CPS has been a national leader, and it's been because of ECS, the graduation requirement, the teachers, the researchers, like Manny talking about, well, I was a social studies teacher, and guess what I did? I stepped in and I taught ECS, and then I taught APCS. So in 10 years, we successfully scaled a required high school course into all of our district managed schools with key partners. We made big inroads into the pre-K to 8 space. And now we want to push forward, right? This is not a time to sort of say like, oh, good, let's pat ourselves on the back. Now we push forward. So key to this has been our partnerships, our research partners, our corporate partners, our like CAFÉCS, University of Chicago, and the Cannon Lab, and all of the associations and everybody that we've worked with. We need to double down on these relationships and continue them, because we're not going to advance without the partners that got us to this place. Right? It doesn't go away. And I see DPI is in the room, iWorks is here. All these people are helping us move forward, and those relationships are crucial. So what are we going to do? Okay. We need to increase access to CS learning opportunities and improve the student experience, right? So we have to prioritize equity in our supports to schools and educators, that we want to ensure that all students learn to use the computational and data tools that they need to participate in a technological world of today and create technological tomorrow that includes all of us. So what our students do, the connections they make to CS, that's going to create the tools we need for tomorrow. It's going to be our students. And that, like all the teachers here that are making those connections, they're our future. Like the tools we're going to be using are being created by these young people. So yay, you too. All right. So we have 5 priority areas. And again, I'm not going to go into this, but I want you to know that we picked these priorities based on district priorities of things like Black student success, how we're working with diverse learners, English language learners, the big priorities that the district has, and our work with our researchers and what we've done. So we're going to focus on this, improving the student experience in every single course that meets the graduation requirements. So we want to continue with ECS. We want to bring those lessons from ECS into our APCSP coursework, right? We want to work on that student experience. We want to provide enriching experiences before and after the graduation requirement. So we want to really cultivate this sense of belonging in CS and empowering all of our district level initiatives. And, we heard from our students that those opportunities, having ECS and then having a teacher encourage them and empowering them to move forward, made a huge difference. That impacts students' lives, right? And we want to make sure that all of our students get experiences before and after that graduation requirement. We don't have endless resources. We're not going to be able to have like hundreds and hundreds of more CS teachers all over the district. So we need to find new ways to really make sure we have these high quality experiences for students. So we want to engage all of our elementary school educators in professional learning so that they can start integrating CS during the school day so that students are getting this experience pre-K to 8. We want to increase the actual offerings in middle school and in high school so that students are going into high school with some background. And then once they take courses, they have a place to go. They have further courses. So that's a big goal. And then finally, one of our students mentioned Dan Stone and data science. And one of the things that we really want to do is we want to engage all of our 6 to 12 educators in professional learning to use data science integrations in all content areas, because our students need to know and understand the tools and the things they're going to be using in college and career. And this is a way we can give students really authentic experiences to answer their own questions, to think about what they want to know about their communities, and then do it themselves, right? To look at that data and be able to use the tools of CS to answer their own questions. So that's where we're headed. I could happy to talk to any of you about it in depth for a long period of time, but I don't want to stand in the way of mingling, refreshments, and any closing out that Stephen wants to do. But again, it's because of all of you that we're where we're at. So please, please don't forget that. Teachers that are on the call, it's the teachers' hard work together with the research that has really made the difference here. So kudos to you.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you to the CS team that is represented here, and thank you to all of our folks online, and thank you to Gail, one of the developers of ECS, for joining us today. Thanks, everyone.